You ready?
I'm always ready. I was born ready.
I just thought something. No, I thought it was quite serious. What is more serious, an offence of violence or an offence of theft?
That depends on the violence and the theft.
No, okay then. So the violence one is very grey area, but the theft is theft from the beginning of theft. So when you steal something, there's a conscious thing that you're doing that is a crime, right? But violence has many grades in terms of the law of the circumstances of how you ended up in that position.
So does theft. How about if I picked a pen up and walked out of it by mistake and
Theft by finding?
Yeah, still class it as stealing. Okay. It's only a pen.
All right, we're talking about that's theft by finding. Let's eliminate theft by finding and work on deliberate theft. You stole something.
They deliberately stole it. Well, then that's like deliberately punching someone to just put in your hand and pushing someone away. That's all grades, isn't it? And this is what you're going to go about, isn't it? The application process.
Yes, on the application, I'm just trying to wonder, right? So there is a thing where you should not be able to consider someone's criminal record if it's spent. So spent, for me, means you can't punish someone twice. They served whatever sentence was given, and it's now run out, the time jurisdiction. I don't think prison sentences can be spent. That's a slightly different story when I was reading the rules. But non-custodial sentences are spent after a period of time that is generally 3 years, and in some circumstances I think it's 4 years, depending on the offence.
So how about then if it's an offence against a child or a woman, but they didn't do any prison term?
But this is the thing.
Is that going to be spent?
If it's violence and there was no prison term, it will be spent.
But there's no prison term. You're saying that can be spent? They can't do that where it's a child or a woman. If it's a child or woman, they should never get a licence.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be... You're saying that you could do a crime against a child and not go to prison?
No, yeah, in this country, you're kidding me, yeah.
Give me one example.
I haven't got no examples in my pocket. But
you need examples in your pocket, Dave. If you're going to talk like this, you need examples.
There are examples where people don't go to prison.
We're
such a soft society now.
Well, no, as long as you don't say something wrong on Twitter, because if you do, you go to prison for that.
Or on here.
Now, what was that person recently went to prison? That's the one I heard, right? So I'm going to repeat a story, and I think it's true, and you can Google it. A girl's friend died in a car crash. She put the lyrics to a song that was a rap song on her feed, either Facebook or Instagram, and the lyrics contained the N-word. And she was prosecuted for posting the lyrics to a song that had racial words in it.
Yeah, it does seem all wrong, doesn't it? You know, what you can and can't do. It does seem with this two-tier, does seem to be true in some respects.
Getting into politics, aren't we? Hey? I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah, but I do think when you're talking about the licensing here, you're talking about people who can and can't do the knowledge, or have to appeal to a magistrate to be able to do the knowledge. And I do think that's a lot where you've got people who are not lawyers, who are not done the knowledge, who've not been professional drivers, are adjudicating with a rule book over what they can and can't, and all they do is
push it to the magistrates.
Yeah, kick the can down the road for someone else to make it. It's the same as the medical. Yeah. So you've got someone going, I'm not making a decision on that. That's not something we should talk about or do. We kick it down to a magistrate. So lots of people don't realise they can appeal, though, don't they?
Well, no, but the appeal process is two-tiered, is it? You appeal to TfL if you want to, or you appeal to the magistrate straight away?
Go to a magistrate's court.
And
usually
always
Westminster
the magistrates
I
will
don't know where
always
they
go with
now.
You. So you think that they're deliberately refusing you because it's simpler for them to have not made the decision in the future, and they can then turn
they've got
around.
a guideline of what they can and can't do, really. I mean, you've only got to see the word something like someone convicted of assault. That would frighten the life out of them. But a lawyer or a judge or a magistrate, that wouldn't frighten the life out of them. They would know that there's all kinds of levels, and it could have been something really nickerish. So you may have just put your hand on someone.
Oh, I know. That's the other thing. Yeah, really. So you have a criminal record that says you assaulted someone, and you could be just a protester who's on a protest march every time, and you've kind of been manhandled a little, and you keep getting charged. And obviously, if you've not been custodially kept, then the sentence couldn't have been that. If you've really hurt someone, you're going to prison, aren't you?
Yeah, and it'd be ABH or GBH or something like that, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be just assault, common assault or anything.
No.
I'm not saying any of it's right. I'm not saying it's right. But if you had something that you would say let's say you had something that was 20 years ago, should that be held against you? You've done nothing else but a common assault. Should that be held against you?
right, this is the law as it stands for TFL. You have one incident of common assault in the last, however long it is, doesn't matter, as long as it's 3 years and spent, you should be fine with your application. But if you have multiple, now multiple being 2 or more, I don't know, multiple is minimum 2, then you are going to be refused.
But isn't the standard pattern for them to chuck a few at you, hopefully one will stick, the police or the CPC? They don't normally just come up with one.
Charge?
Yeah.
You're talking in one incident, though.
Yeah, one incident.
What if I was found guilty, given a what's it called when we have to go and clean up rubbish from the street? Community service. I found guilty if I got a community service sentence or a fine in 2009, and then a year later, something else. Now, those 2 charges, your history will be taken into account, won't it, with the new charge and what you'll get. But you don't get a charge, you don't get a custodial sentence or anything else on the next sentence. And then you have another one maybe 3 or 4 years later. But this has all taken place 15 to 20 years ago, and you've never had a thing against you since. But you've got 3 multiple incidences of some form that shows on your record as violence, which is... How do they show it as violence? What's the term? It's not ABH, it's not GBH. What's lower?
Assault, common assault.
Common assault. So it is common assault. So you've got 3 charges of common assault, which means you've got multiple prosecutions for violence. You won't be accepted on TFL.
Common assault's just above words.
I know, yeah.
That's the next step,
or
isn't
spitting on someone.
That is assault. That is.
Is
spitting is nasty. That's disgusting, that one.
I agree with you. It's nasty and disgusting, but what level does it come in at?
I'd rather someone hit me than spat on me. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be impressed with that. I've got to be honest with myself, spitting in you. But no, yeah. But then this is the trouble with it. People don't realise. TFL have got a guideline, obviously, haven't they? Which we're not privy to totally. But they've got a guideline.
I've got a guideline.
You've got the guideline.
119 pages long.
And in that, they're going to follow that to the letter.
Yes.
There's no, and it's a bit like an examiner who may say guidelines are guidelines. I can't score you today.
Yeah.
Because their hands are tied from a guideline, which says to me, really, if it was down to me, I'd score you.
Mm.
When someone says something like that, I know what you mean or you meant to do, but it doesn't work like that. Guidelines are guidelines. In other words, my hands are tied. I have to give you a D today.
What if you fully don't understand the guidelines yourself? As the person in the position of power.
Well, that's evident of TFL, because if it goes to a magistrate and they give it to you, which they do probably 9 out of 10.
Nearly always, yes.
Yeah, if they give it to you, that means whoever's doing it for TFL doesn't understand what's on there.
Right.
So it's above them, isn't it?
I was asking recently for the specifics of why the refusal was taking place, because the criminal record was very long time spent, long, 15 years spent. And they said the reason would have been given in the text that they would have been sent, and we looked for it, but it wasn't given. It basically says your criminal record is the reason why, but it doesn't say what about that criminal record is preventing you. And then it came back that there's a section in the guidelines, the 119 pages, that says multiple convictions for violent offences. If you've got multiple convictions for violent offences, they can refuse you, and they do. They refuse you as not being good character.
And then you just appeal.
Then you appeal, and then the violent offences, obviously the magistrates who understands what these violent offences could be when you're explaining it. One was a spat with your wife where she beat you up and you managed to break her finger while you was holding her back to stop her from stabbing you, which happened to me. So
what is there that you definitely can't do to knowledge? Obviously murder.
No,
that can't be classed as spent.
No, this is the funny thing. You can't be spent. A prison sentence can't be spent is what I think I read the other day. I'm going to have to double check it. It can't be spent. But there was the murderer doing the knowledge. Do you remember him?
No.
Oh, it was hilarious. The murderer was doing the knowledge. And he came in to the school to buy some... He came into the school to buy some runs. And he said, I'm not sure if they're going to accept me. And they did accept him. And I said, why are they not going to accept you? He said, I was convicted of murder. And I said, what happened? He said, I murdered my wife.
Wow. Who was calling with him?
No one. He didn't.
No, I shouldn't think so.
He kicked up. This is historically, there's nothing untrue about what I'm telling you here. He was on the knowledge and an uproar started. A groundswell started. And I can't remember if they actually threw him off, but they was under some obligation where they couldn't do exactly anything they wanted to him. But turns out, he was not only did he murder his wife, he was schizophrenic. And he murdered his wife in some schizophrenic rage. And that was his defence. But that had been spent, he hadn't murdered anyone for about 6 years.
But you can't have... I mean, I'd give anyone a squeeze, but come on.
No, you can't.
A schizophrenic murderer.
I know. But he was on. He'd signed on. He'd got on. It was the fact that they got him kicked off. And I think, I'll have to ask Trevor Merrills if he remembers this, because I think Trevor had something to do with it. I'm sure the orgs had something to do with the uproar that was caused. Someone phoned me one day and said, do you know that there's someone who's convicted of murder that's doing the knowledge? I said, yeah, he's one of us too.
Sitting next to me, sharpening the knife.
So a bit extreme. But then there's other extremes, which, again, I won't mention no names, but one of the students was convicted for possession of guns.
And equipped.
Also done for kidnapping, demanding money for menace, whatever it was. Long list of convictions and prison sentences and everything else, and was accepted on, did the knowledge.
After appeals or what?
Yeah, after appeal. Yeah, not straight on. Definitely would have been.
And it could have been a considerable amount of years in between. It wouldn't have been just like last year or something.
No. Also, it does go back in time to sort of like pre-TFL. So the TFL seemed to be operating to a slightly different operation to what the Met Police were operating under. And the Met Police definitely could see your criminal record in front of them, the examiners, which they cannot now. They cannot see your criminal record. The examiners can't see anything unless... there was I should have kept the clauses up. There was a clause to the fact of what they could see.
So the examiners could be sitting there with a schizophrenic murderer across the other side of the desk.
And not know it. No, they wouldn't have got on, would they? They wouldn't have got on.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. But it does seem like, I think the point, Dave, of what we're saying here is, it does seem to be like maybe getting harder to get, the applications are being weeded down,
yes.
Whittled away at.
And that goes not only the application, current drivers who end up with so many points on their licence and then go through that.
Yep.
And in the end they go, is it worth it? And then you look at all the roads and the road closures and, you know, the loss of working area and that, and you think, is it worth it? Yeah. Someone's got 3 points for 24 mile an hour, then get another 3, and they're stuck in traffic. Can't get into Euston Station, can't drive up Tottenham Court Road, can't go through Bank Junction, and just going, what?
Yeah. We're being a bit doom and gloomy today.
No, well, it's also true, and that's down to TFL and the councils. It's not down to anyone else to destroying the working practice area, the working practice of the drivers. It's not down to any cab driver. That is purely and simply the responsibility of TFL. Yeah, really, and the councils who do this to the roads and the roadworks. Look at the roadworks now. They've restricted the roads to there's hardly any roads left. And then give people permission to dig the lot up for a ridiculous amount of time, and there's no one working on it. And you just think there should be a different... If you're going to do that, and you're going to leave us with one street left, and then you're going to dig it up, you better be working 24 hours a day like mad to get it back open again. Yeah. So don't just leave it there, and don't just say we're going to do this for 6 months. Obviously, it's all deliberate, because it used to be very well orchestrated back in the 80s and 90s. They used to...
It was more so back then.
Ken Livingstone did it. Do you not remember Ken Livingstone doing that? He said, I'm not having this no more. Where neighbouring boroughs, like Camden and the city, Camden and Westminster, would do roadworks in neighbouring roads. And he said, no, if you're doing that, you can't be doing that until after that one's finished. Yeah. You can't have... And they orchestrated it. And they did then, under the GLC for quite some time, make sure that there was no one working in the neighbouring streets.
You don't think that's happening now?
No, not at all. The gloves are completely off now. They couldn't clear how many bridges they shut at once or how many roads they shut. They just dig them up, and you just see one leads into another one. You can be on a diversion and go into another diversion. Yeah.
I've been diverted from a diversion.
And you just think, who can think that it's good to have a diversion onto a diversion? Who thinks that's perfectly perfectly sane, Yep. No, it's not. It's mad. It's completely mad. With the loss of streets that you've had since the Ring of Steel, when was that? 92, 93?
Yes.
And they put the Ring of Steel up?
No, the Ring of Steel was 95.
You sure? Well, wasn't the Baltic Exchange and all those bombs in 92 and 93, and they started immediately after that? I thought they was early 90s, those bombings, 92 and 93.
the reason I remember the ring as still being probably 95. We'll check it and we'll be proved that I'm wrong. But when I was on the knowledge, I started in 94 and finished in 96. The ringer still came in. So I'm saying it has to, because we could go along lower Thames Street, upper Thames Street.
And the ringer still could have come in 94 straight after those two bombings. I think it was the Baltic Exchange. What was the other one in the city? There was two, wasn't
the Baltic Exchange, my cab was in the Baltic Exchange bomb. That was what we talked about with Peter Maynard. So my cab H160YUL was parked outside the Baltic Exchange, and when that bomb went off. So I've told you my bomb-proof stories. So I lived in Rotherhithe Street when the Isle of Dogs bomb went off under Canary Wharf, and we were sitting there watching telly, me and my brother, and I was outside the Admiral Duncan when that went off. I was the closest thing to the Admiral Duncan when that blew up. So I started to think I was bad luck.
I was in Bishopsgate the next day, and there was three of us driving through. We all had something to do up there, up in town, and it was the next day after, and it was shut everywhere. And Tony Baker, a friend of mine, was driving, and he said, "God, enough want some room. This police, they want some room. The sirens are going off, and suddenly they came from every angle and forced us onto the pavement and dragged us all out of the vehicle. Unbeknownst to us, we had borrowed a friend Ollie Buckley's car. He'd had a row with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend had then done no more than reported the car stolen.
And you're now you're driving into the area?
Yes, where is concealed? We spent all day, 12 hours in Bishopsgate Police Station while they found Ollie Buckley, who was in the pub, and they couldn't find him. There was no mobile phones. They had to drive to the pub to find him. He said, "Oh, yeah, I know, they've got it, that's all right," and they let us out, 12 hours we was there.
It was Irish at the time, I'm afraid. So that was your Irish accent that you was putting on at the time.
Gary Maloney in the back.
Oh, no, you was with a tea caddy as well.
Yeah, we spent all day there, and we just wasn't able to do it like now. With the mobile phones, it just wasn't as commonplace as now.
No, that was the beginning of mobile phones, wasn't it? 94 to 96, you could start to get mobile phones. The Mercury 1-to-1 and things like that were coming out, weren't they? But no, I didn't have a mobile phone until 1996. Yeah, when I passed out, got my first mobile phone.
Tony Baker was shouting to me. We was all in separate cells in Bishopsgate. And Tony Baker's shouting out, "Chicken and chips." And I've got ribs and chips. Gary Malone, never been nicked before or anything like that. He'd never been in trouble. And he was going, "All I've got is a rotten old pie." We've all got rotten old pies, haven't we? I'm going, "I'll give you 2 ribs for one of your bits of chicken." He was complaining, shouting. But yeah, getting back to what we're saying, I do think that everyone should appeal. If you've got a minor thing that's years ago, a judge, a magistrate, they're lawyers. They're lawyers. They've seen. They know. They can one glance go, "That was nothing really. Look at that. That's a nothing incident. He's got himself a little bit of trouble for there. It's been X amount of time. They know the guidelines for how long it's been." And they're not, magistrates and judges are not afraid to make a decision.
Yeah. But it's a legal decision then, and it's law.
And they're not afraid to make it.
Set in stone.
You know why? Because they're not afraid to be wrong as well.
Yeah.
Well, they do their best to be right.
Yeah.
If they did, they're not. Whereas everyone else is afraid of their job and afraid of,
But Dave, we're not encouraging violent people, rapists, these type of people to become cab drivers. No, that's not what we're doing. But there are circumstances where a large percentage of people in London have not made it to adulthood without getting some sort of criminal record. Now, whatever it is, if it's a long time ago, generally the right to appeal to a magistrate will be successful, generally. Unless you're talking about the guy who murdered his wife.
Yeah, the serious stuff. I mean, come on, it's something that happened when you're young and a common assault or something like that. And, the person's probably got no mark or no bruises. And the judge...
I know. Yeah.
You can't punish people for their whole life. They can't have a career for something from minor. It's
a double punishment, isn't it? You did something.
They've done nothing for 10 or 15 years. They're now working, paying tax.
Give them a job. Well, that's it then. So we discussed that one.
So we start doing job search at Belmarsh Prison tomorrow morning.